So E3 has come and gone once again, and while last year I focused mainly on Sony and how they absolutely dominated every other company, this year I'm going to give more of a general opinion on all of the companies that showed up at E3 and how well they did. Let's start off with Microsoft, who started by showing off their new console, the Xbox One X, which of course is a pretty stupid name. They went into a lot of detail about all the specs of the console and how it's the most powerful console ever created, even though it's about half as powerful as my PC. But they didn't actually show any games that really demonstrated just how powerful this is, or like any visually appealing games that I thought. The only game I thought really pushed the boundaries visually was Anthem. Um, and a lot of the other games seem to be same old sort of browns and greys, really dull colours, not much going on with the colour palette, and yeah, just seeming like you're telling us but not showing us of the power of this new console. And of course, with the specs of this console, you're not admitting to yourself that it's with games like Anthem, for instance, this is just not going to be hitting 60 FPS, which is something I'm not particularly bothered about, but a lot of people are. And 60 FPS was just not mentioned in the entire conference. To add to that fact is the problem that a lot of the most visually appealing games are just on the PS4 already. Like Uncharted 4 is probably the best looking game I've played to date. God of War is probably going to be, even better looking than that. You can't just say, oh, we have the most powerful console ever, and then not show any games to actually back that up. Phil Spencer, of course, was his usual self, just constantly bragging and saying, oh, Xbox is the place to be, it's the best console, everyone should be an Xbox player. But it's just all talk at the end of the day. Like, this is a problem inherent with Microsoft, is that they think just throwing money at things is the best course of action. Just throwing money at things and then bragging and having the marketing push behind them. And yeah, it worked with the Xbox 360. It's always been the heaviest marketed console as the Xbox, just because they've got that money behind them. But I think it's not really working anymore. Prime example is Black Desert Online, which is a Korean PC game. Absolutely nothing to do with Microsoft. Yet Microsoft are coming out and saying, "Oh look, we've got Black Desert. It's a console exclusive," which obviously they're trying to stretch the meaning of the word exclusive, really. And let's not forget that just recently they cancelled two very promising exclusives. Project Spark, which I think is probably the most original sort of idea that Microsoft has ever put out, and Scalebound, which I thought looked horrific, but it was by Platinum Games, so obviously everyone was going to bum the hell out of it, and it was probably going to sell. But a game like Black Desert, if you think about it, I don't think it's the right direction for Microsoft, because what sells notoriously poorly on Xbox consoles is Asian style games. And Black Desert is a very Asian style game, It's and what we don't want to end up with is a situation where it's bad for the developers to be on an Xbox console, like what happened with, say, Blue Dragon, for instance, or Tenchu, or any number of IPs that Microsoft has taken, Tales of Vesperia, anything like that. It's not going to do as well on an Xbox console as it is on a PlayStation console. So by them just throwing money at it as a short-term thing to say, oh look, we've got this exclusive, I don't think it's good for the gamers at the end of the day. Showing the car, who gives a shit about a blooming car being shown off at E3, and saying all this stuff like, oh yeah, Porsche share our vision for the future of esports. I don't know, maybe Xbox people want that. I know they are more into the sort of mindless shooting and driving sort of, games like that are just purpose built for like mass audiences, I suppose. So yeah, overall I just think Xbox are very try hard. They come out boasting about all these things like how great they are, but then they don't really deliver with the games, and they certainly don't deliver with interesting original exclusives. And I'm pretty sure that's exactly what they said they did deliver on. Moving on to Ubisoft, vast improvements on previous years. So glad they've got rid of Aisha Tyler, the most annoying human being in the world. But also, the stuff they showed this time was actually really refreshing, especially the Mario Rabbids crossover. I thought that was just something really, not necessarily unique because it really borrows heavily from other games. It just felt refreshing to me as someone who believes that Nintendo is everything but refreshing and just rehashing old ideas over and over again. So to let Ubisoft handle one of their IPs, which they don't really do, I think, very much. They don't usually let other people take on their own intellectual property. I think that's a bold move for Nintendo that was pretty much warranted in my eyes. Obviously, Yves Guillemot and Shigeru Miyamoto are both heavily cringeworthy individuals, and seeing them both on stage together was pretty spine-chilling. But it's easy to see why they did that, because Ubisoft have an image problem, and they've always wanted to project this idea that we listen to what the fans want, and we're a fan-friendly company, like Nintendo are perceived to be, really for the fans. So yeah, I think that was just their attempt at trying to project that image. I thought the trailer for The Crew was pretty stupid, how it did the Inception thing, and it just looked exactly the same as Inception. Don't really have much else to say about that. Assassin's Creed Origins looks quite nice, but even though the director said, we've taken things in a new direction and tried to make things original this time, it never is. It's always the same shit. Assassin's Creed Black Flag was meant to be different, and yeah, the ship mechanics were, but then it was just a load of fucking boring tailing missions for the whole game. And then to top that off, Yves Guillemot finishes by saying, oh yeah, we've got a brand new IP for you here, and it's something really innovative and original. And then it turns out that it's just the sailing mechanics from Assassin's Creed repurposed into a new game. How is that the most unique thing you have to offer? Bethesda's showing this year was mind-bogglingly awful, and consisted mainly of just showing us games that they'd already released. Basically just bragging again and saying, we pride ourselves on creating open-ended, open-world games. Yeah, we'll make one then. Like, you haven't made a good game since 2011, and even that's debatable to some people, Like, E3 is meant to be a showcase, but Bethesda's little Bethesda Land idea was literally just showcasing games that they've already released. In my opinion, a lot of people might be excited for Skyrim and Fallout in VR, but I just think it looks horrific. Like, the way your weapons like quiver around and the movements of the screen. I mean, obviously it's going to be different when you're actually playing it in VR, but I just think it looks weird, like it looks jarringly bad, and that's not something that VR should look like. It should look smooth, And I must say, if they are going to charge for Skyrim VR, how dare they? How dare they charge for this game again? And if everything had gone smoothly with Skyrim and Fallout from the beginning, and I knew they put a lot of effort in, then fair enough, I wouldn't be saying that. But for God's sake, the PS3 version of Skyrim is just not functional. It's broken. They ended with a trailer for Wolfenstein 2, which I thought looked quite cool. However, the trailer was just so bizarre and disjointed. It started off really cool, like an old sort of Technicolor sort of film. and then just kind of drifted off into like nonsense, just absolute nonsense. I had no clue what was going on. Just like snippets of story and like dialogue with different characters, um, and which just didn't seem to connect at all with each other or flow in any particular way. One of the worst trailers I've ever seen for anything, and it went on far too long, rather than just giving us a tease of what we can expect. So Sony now, not quite as strong as last couple of years, but they absolutely smashed it the last couple of years anyway. So I wasn't particularly expecting anything from them this time. Maybe a little bit more than what we actually got. I like how they always seem to show a bit of an appreciation for music in their conferences. And the stage show as a whole was very good. I'm sure it was very entertaining for people who were there. The first main thing they showed is more gameplay of Days Gone, and I just find this game so baffling. It is so generic. Everything about it is literally 100% ripping off other games. First and foremost, The Last of Us, which is another Sony exclusive. Like, what gap in the market are they trying to fill by making another sort of semi-stealth zombie apocalypse third-person shooter game, probably with crafting and all that other bollocks in it as well? And to think that Sony Bend could have been working on the next Siphon Filter, which I think is a really iconic Sony exclusive, or they could have been doing something just original in any way. Instead, what they're working on is another zombie game. I think this is a big misstep here, really, and if Sony continues to make decisions like this, it's not going to look good, is it, basically? Shadow of the Colossus remaster was kind of baffling. I don't think there's any point in remastering it, really. I mean, I held the same opinion about Final Fantasy X when it was remastered, and I bought it, and then they announced another remaster for the PS4. It's kind of a slap in the face, really, of people who bought the original remaster, and I don't think it serves the game really that well. A lot of people have said that the aesthetics are a bit lacking in the new look of the game, because it's almost too modern now, and it almost looks a bit too much like other games, whereas the original Shadow of the Colossus had that really distinct art style and aesthetic that could be lost in this new version. Pretty much the only whimper of an announcement that we got from Square Enix was at Sony's press conference, and it was basically Final Fantasy 15 now has fishing, in VR, of course. I have said many times in the past that fishing in video games I find to be just utterly boring and should not be included in any game. Fishing games should definitely not be made, and certainly not fishing mini games within other games. So yeah, I think this will be boring, pointless, a waste of time, a waste of money, and they should just be focusing on other things, like completing Final Fantasy 15, which isn't even a finished game. The new God of War trailer looked pretty phenomenal. It's kind of reinvigorated my interest in the series after not being bothered about Ascension and God of War Origins or whatever else, whatever other blooming crap they decided to churn out after God of War 3, which was a disappointment in itself. But anyway, while I am excited for God of War, and I do feel like it's a new direction for the series, I just really, really hope that after this game, Santa Monica will move on to doing something just a little bit different. The main reason I think that is because God of War was a real influencer, and influenced a massive amount of like copycat games, things like that. And once they started just pumping out God of War and having it as like almost an annual franchise, it almost became the copycat of itself. Like, it could never live up to how amazingly good God of War 1 and 2 was. And it was just trying to recreate that magic over and over again, trying desperately, and just could never do it. So I think there's something to be said about just leaving a franchise and just saying, okay, we were an influencer, we've done our bit, we've created this amazing thing. Let's leave it like that and preserve that, and not just shovel out a load of crap all the time. And yeah, obviously I don't think the new God of War is going to be crap. I think it's going to be really good. But yeah, definitely move on to other things after this, rather than doing God of War 2, which, you know, let's face it, is probably what's going to happen. But Quantic Dream once again shared a bit of Detroit Become Human, and as always, it's impressive. I think they should stop showing things now because it's getting a little spoilery. And, you know, some things are nice to be a bit of a surprise. But yeah, I've always thought Quantic Dream was one of the reasons why Sony, you know, beats everyone else on exclusives. I've liked all of their games. I really think they bring something original to the table on every one of them. Sony closed out with the new Spider-Man game from Insomniac, and Insomniac are possibly the best studio to be doing a Spider-Man game, I would say. Obviously, they've copied a lot of stuff from the Arkham series, but one thing I noticed is that the button prompts weren't as obnoxious as in Arkham. Like, when Spider-Man was zipping to different areas, it just showed a little circle. It didn't say, press R1, press R1, you know, every single time. The last few Spider-Man games have just been absolutely terrible. Like, there was a really good PS1 game, then there was Spider-Man 1 and 2 on the PS2, which were really, really good, phenomenal games. And then it just completely went on a nosedive, and so I'm looking forward to that polish that I know Insomniac can probably bring to a Spider-Man game. Finally, on to Nintendo, and one thing that Nintendo consoles have been getting more of is sort of these very Japanese style RPG type games. We had 2, I believe, in this conference, Xenoblade and also Fire Emblem Warriors, and both trailers sort of perfectly encapsulated everything that's wrong with Japanese gaming at the minute, and there was a few in the other conferences as well, but the trailers are just horrific, poorly edited, weird transition effects and overlay effects and stuff like that for no reason. A lot of the trailers are just like random snippets of dialogue that don't make any sense without context. Just really obnoxiously bad voice acting. What is with the voice acting in these games? How can a game like Dragon Quest VIII or Ni no Kuni, for instance, both by level 5, have across the board such phenomenal voice acting, and then all these other Japanese games seem to have just garishly bad voice acting, and it's like garish colours too, like this style that we've seen that's been increasingly put forward by Japanese developers, like this sort of almost cel shaded but not kind of thing, but you can tell they've just done it that way because they don't have the budget or the skills to create games with beautiful graphics anymore, unless you're Final Fantasy and Square Enix is literally pumping millions and millions of yen into it. It just doesn't seem like Japan has the knack for it anymore. Anyway, that's for another video. Back to Nintendo. So what do you get? Yoshi again, Kirby again, Splatoon again, just everything Nintendo. That's what you get. It's Nintendo. They'll just keep doing the same thing all the time. I must admit, Super Mario Odyssey does look very good, and it looks like they've introduced interesting mechanics into that game, and I would really like to play it. But then again, is that all they have for me? Just more Mario? Is it all they can do? It's not exactly a massive departure from what they've done before. It's just they've thought of a new gimmick. They've thought, ooh, he has a hat that he can throw and he can, attach it to people and then you'll take control of them. It's like everything's a gimmick rather than an actual well thought out part of a game or a well thought out entirety of a game. And then there's stuff like the announcement of Metroid, which was literally just a title, Metroid in development now, which I thought was a bit pathetic, really. Like, for something like that, you might as well wait until you actually have something to show, because people have been waiting for this for years. And if you just say, oh, Metroid 4 in development now, it's like, yeah, well, it's not coming soon, is it, basically? Same with the Pokemon thing. I thought it was really stupid to just have someone say, oh, guess what, we're working on a Pokemon game for the Nintendo Switch. Please be excited. Everything's please be excited with these Japanese people. What is their problem? I think the main problem with it is, like, these Japanese companies that ask, oh, please be excited. It's not up to us as to whether we are excited or not. You have to make us excited. And just showing a title might make us excited if we're massive fanboys, like a lot of Nintendo players are. But it's not going to make anyone else excited. I literally could not be less excited for anything that Nintendo is bringing out. And what I know people are crying out for with the Nintendo Switch is basically more third-party titles, more of a bigger library of games, and to put out this, 24-minute showcase of mainly stuff we've seen before or we could expect from Nintendo. Nothing particularly new, nothing surprising. Just saying, hey, we're working on something, see ya. It's just not good, is it, basically? Let's be honest. I mean, as much as I wasn't really interested in the way Microsoft had, like, a quick succession of, like, small trailers for, like, little indie games or, you know, smaller studios games that they bring into the Xbox, at least they were showing that they have a wider variety of games and are interested in bringing different games to the platform. So overall, I think this E3 has been pretty disappointing for all the companies, really. There wasn't a particular game that excited me all that much. Some stuff I'm looking forward to, but yeah, overall, I would have liked to have seen some more original ideas being thrown out there. Yeah, so much more room for stuff that isn't just the same old stuff we've seen before. Anyway, that's been my E3 reactions, and thanks for watching.